Okay, welcome back. We're talking about higher-end boot disk and other disks of that type. And, yes, they do have a murky past, but, the way I look at it is this. I'm coming over to your house to save your ass. Are you really going to cause me trouble saying, are you using some murky piece of software? Probably not, right? Okay. So I kind of justify the ends. I'm trying to save this corporate PC. I'm trying to restore order back to the company, and they better not be complaining about the tools that I use. Okay, let's continue. So another thing you can do, we're going to do this a little later on, is we're going to use an online binary file hex editor. Not right this very second, but it's a really cool tool that you can pull up and look at an executable file and then make some changes to it. Yeah, we're going to do that. Okay. So inspecting running programs, the task manager. Now let me ask you a question. Now this is like Windows 10, and we only expect to see one person on here. But if I go to users, I'm only going to see my stuff, right? But if there were two people logged onto this, would I still be able to see everyone's stuff? Not unless I started with a command prompt or with the admin permissions. So this is a great tool. You get to see all the system stuff and your stuff, but not other people's stuff. Now, right now, I'm the only one logged in, so that's not really an issue. But when we go to server, if I hit users there, I'm going to be able to see only mine, right? Okay. So I do need to go in and do admin processes. Now, the Process Explorer guy, a fantastic tool down here in... So Process Explorer is like this guy on steroids. I mean, he is cool. Now, again, there's an awful lot of things that have very similar names. Procmon is something we're going to be using a lot of. But right now, just Process Explorer. Okay. And he does a slightly better job. First of all, I like it. It shows the dependencies and color codes. And I mean, it's really a really cool tool. And again, if I want to see more than what I've got, I'm going to have to fire this guy up with administrator rights. So that part doesn't say. But now, I must confess, neither one of these tools require administrator rights for the vast majority of their functionality. It's just whether or not I get to see other people's stuff. That's it. Okay. Extracting suspicious files, page 118. So most likely we're talking about just being able to copy the file from wherever your quarantine is. Now, I will tell you, this sounds crazy, but makes a little bit of sense. They quarantine your file so that it can't be used, right? So when you go to the quarantine area and say copy, it's going to say, are you out of your mind? I just quarantined this thing because it's dangerous. What on earth are you doing? So you do have to go through a little dance there to tell your AV product, no, it's perfectly okay. I'm going to copy this off on a flash drive. Don't hassle me, okay? It's a little strange because they're trying their best to protect you, and yet you're deliberately doing something that could be dangerous. So yeah, there's a little bit of a dance there. But of course, now if you did it with Hiren or one of those other guys where you booted it up and then it quarantined it, well, there'd be no issue at all because it's not running, right? Cool. All right. So here's another thing. Let's say you have a bunch of suspicious files, but you don't know which ones are which. Copy them all. Who cares? Take them all. You can go sort them out later. It's no big deal. You don't need to go picking through, I'll take this one, but not that one. Nah, bull. Free sources, page 120. So you can get online samples, but to tell you the truth, now, this is one of those crazy things. I'm going to get a malware sample, so I'm probably going to be on a machine that has the protection turned down, like a dynamic lab, right? Because remember now, you want the dynamic lab to run. You want the virus to run, which means I'm vulnerable when I go get samples. And so how crazy would it be for a malware writer to put samples on a sample site that was going to infect me before I got my samples? Yeah, I know, it's crazy. So be cautious. I don't particularly like online ones because, I just don't trust them. So now they have some others that are by invitation, and they're zipped up and they're password protected. They're somehow so you can pull them down. But just going to some free site and yanking viruses, geez, that's a recipe for disaster. So Malwarebytes again. I like Malwarebytes in case you haven't figured that out yet. So let me go to Malwarebytes. Malwarebytes allows you to actually submit things. So Let me do, what would I call it? Submit? Oh, okay, we'll just go there. And basically, so they have a, okay. Well, they have a forum where you can go in and submit your own samples. I'm not going to dig through and find it. But they have a whole forum talking about, here's our false positive, here's our false negatives. It allows you to go in and say, I just got an alert, but I know darn well this is okay. So this is how you train their system. Now, it's reputation based. You can't be just a bad guy saying, no, this bad malware is really good. It's going to have to be an awful lot of people coming in there saying, okay, now this is showed up as bad, but I really think it's good. And so they'll tweak the algorithm a tiny bit. So it requires your feedback to be able to pull this off, right? Okay. So that's a good thing. They also have a way that you can go in and get some stuff. Anyway, I'm going to skip in the book because there's a gazillion things they talk about there that are not really relevant. Research mailing list, I mentioned on page 137. Again, by invitation, basically, if you're a researcher in one particular field, maybe you're just doing encryption or something, and you want to see how other people are using encryption in malware, then yeah. A sample exchange. Now, this is typically between AV companies. Now, look, AV companies actually do a pretty good job. They share information. If somebody gets a new 0-day, they immediately tell the other vendors, okay? They don't keep it to themselves. Like, that would be, mine's better because we got, the 0-day faster than everyone else. I mean, they don't play those games, thank goodness. Now, you could tap into that if you were a company and say, I want to be part of your exchange. Every time you see something devastating and new and you start shipping it off to other people for them to look at, well, then I want it too. Again, I don't know the mechanics of how do you do that, but it's in the book. So basically, unless you're an employee or a researcher, you're probably not going to be able to tap into that thing. Commercial sources. Now, look, this is crazy as hell, but you can buy malware on the black market. Ready to go. You can buy a kit that's a malware writing kit, and we're going to do this, where we're going to fire this thing up and we're going to build our own virus and pick out exactly what we want it to do and how it's going to be deployed. Hit the button, it'll generate it for us, and we're ready to go take that virus and go put it in an email, and you're off and running. Now, obviously, bad guys are trying to make money off of this stuff, and so if it's a very, very fresh virus that allows for like remote execution or information stealing, it's going to cost a lot, right? Because these are brokers trying to make money off of malware. So how are you tapping into that? I wouldn't, okay? First of all, I wouldn't even want to go to their website. Can you imagine if somebody was to accuse you of being a malware author, and they went to your machine and looked at your browsing history and said, man, you went to this sketchy site over here where you can buy and sell malware, and you went, well, yeah, because I wanted a sample. And they're going to go, yeah, sure. Right, so I just stay away from those. I think they're just not reasonable. So the opposite side of that is companies will go there and pay if they find a 0-day. And so let's just say it's, I don't know, Symantec. Oh no, let's use Microsoft as an example. So Microsoft has find out they got a 0-day. They don't know anything about it. They could go to these brokers and say, I'll pay $10,000 for that sample so I can see what it does and I can fix it for you. They might. I don't know how that works, but it could. And then honeypots, page 139. Now look, honeypots have been a major theme in movies and TV that, quite frankly, doesn't really exist. It's an awful lot of hype. It's just full of misinformation. So the idea is I'm supposed to allure some attacker to a server rather than your real server. Now here's how it worked in the old days. In the old days, during dial-up, if you remember, you've probably seen this on TV before, where you keep the person on the line long enough to trace the call, like a ransom or something. They kidnap some kid on TV, and the cops are there and waiting for the ransomer to call, and they're going to trace the line. It takes a time to trace the line. Well, that's what this was all about. Honeypot was designed to slow down the attacker so you have enough time to trace the phone call back. Well, clearly that's not the case now. If I want to detect where you're from your IP address and in your MAC address, I don't need to wait. I can do that immediately. So this whole concept is really dumb now, but let's continue. So the whole idea was to divert them from let's say you have a research site and you want to divert them from that. So you make a fake research site, and it'll look pretty good. Maybe it'll have some really cool looking stuff, but they attack that instead. Now there's a problem with that. Is if you piss off the attacker, they might come back at you with, maybe they were just curious before, but after you piss them off, maybe they're mad. So there's an awful lot of things to be talked about here. There's one called a low interaction, where just limited services, like I just have like an Apache web server or IIS or something. A high interaction with full operating system with all of the services running, so that it looks like a real honest-to-God machine, right? Cost and complexity. So yeah, it does require you to set up a honeypot, and yes, you are dealing with bad guys like on a daily basis. And so what are the legal ramifications? Well, let me tell you, before the new set of laws that came out for cybersecurity, it was someone did an entrapment defense, saying I would not have done that, but I was enticed into doing something bad. Okay, and apparently that was successful 1 or 2 times. Now, not now. I mean, there's plenty of security laws that basically said you ought not be poking around where you don't belong. But there was a period of time where an entrapment defense actually worked. Sad times. Okay, so entrapment is no longer really an issue. So don't worry about it. First of all, don't do a honeypot. It's a dumb idea. Anyway, if you were to do a honeypot, I mean, I would go to my legal first. Say, I'm getting ready to do this. Are you okay? Of course, they're going to say, I have no idea what you're talking about. I have to research it. But hey, at least you could have a piece of paper saying they agreed. Okay, because if this comes back to bite you. And there's one called Diana, page 140. It's basically a homemade Linux-based honeypot. Already made up, already ready to rock and roll. All you do is just boot it up, run, you're done. Kind of cool. Okay, we've reached the end of this chapter, and we'll continue on with doing some hands-on stuff in just a minute.